America is burning right now. It's on fire, coast to coast. Madness and mayhem, coast to coast. What started off in Minnesota following the murder of George Floyd, followed by massive protests, which went from peaceful protests into burning, looting, burning down buildings, burning up a police station, many businesses. What started there, then to every major city within the country, from Los Angeles to Houston to Atlanta to Dallas, Philly, New York, DC, Boston, you name it, any big city, strictly madness this weekend. What you're seeing is people who are fed up. They're fed up with a whole lot. They're fed up with the overall system for the benefit of a few while the masses struggle. That is a background theme to all of this. Specifically regarding police brutality, you have time after time after time where policemen have abused their power. They have killed unarmed citizens and have gotten away with it. That is the thing. They're getting away with it. And when that happens time and time again, people march and they protest and they, demand that the perpetrators be arrested. And after hemming and hawing, after a while, they've eventually arrested sometimes. And then after that, it goes from, then things get quiet, because they have to work on, the trial and set the date for the trial and all that. And so normally by the time they get to trying the case, the news is kind of stale, it's old, so people aren't really focused on it. And then more often than not, the police officers get off. And then another uprising again. And so people are tired of that. And so what you're seeing is people saying enough is enough. We've tried every other approach. We've tried the peaceful approach and it's not working. I'm not here advocating burning down buildings and looting and mashing up windows and, burning up police cars and just other cars. I'm not advocating that, but I understand it. Martin Luther King said the riot is the voice of the unheard, right? Martin Luther King, the nonviolent advocate that he was, even he understood that what you're seeing when people get to rioting and burning and mashing up things it's because they aren't being heard. So what you're seeing is people's voice not being heard, and this is how they respond. Just frustration over the course of the beginning of this country, from the foundation of this country. A nation founded on the white genocide of the native Indian population. That's how the country started. Then the country was built on the backs of the white enslavement of Black Africans through hundreds of years of slavery. And from that, ever since then, you have this more or less master race of people, as they probably view themselves, trying to maintain their dominance. And so that is evident through policies such as, redlining, where you starve communities of investment, from business investment and what have you, from educational policies, where areas that have, low property values don't get, funding for schools. So the state of education, those communities, and the resource that those schools get is minimal. So you keep those people in these poorer areas, with substandard education. And so, I can go on for a long time listing all the different things that have been done to maintain this master class, who control everybody else. And it's not by accident, it is by design. So out of these ghettos and poor areas that they have, by design created, you're going to have poverty. From that, you're going to, with lack of opportunity and hopelessness and desperation, you're going to have crime comes out of that area. And then when crime is in there, then you have police coming in there to, set the people straight. And then the fact that it's now profitable to, to the new enslavement, to imprison, millions of people out of who have resorted to a life of crime out of these conditions under which they, were born and grew up in. Then you're going to have these conditions. And so you're going to have this animosity between the people and police across the nation. So that's why you're seeing this uprising across the nation. Is not a Minnesota problem. It is a United States problem. It happens everywhere. Everybody can empathize, with the issue. So you have uprising. So this is a combination of things. It has been coming for, hundreds of years. And of late, the more police get away with this nonsense, then the more you're going to see this sort of action. The marching didn't seem to get their attention. The singing, holding hands didn't seem to get their attention. All these different things didn't get their attention. But if we're to look at what happened just recently in this George Floyd case, you have this man kneeling on this man's neck for 8 minutes and kill him. An obvious murder that's on tape, on video. And, what were they waiting on to arrest this man? Literally nothing changed until they started burning on their city. So if you look at it, a logical conclusion would be they acted and got their ass in gear as soon as they started burning their shit down. So take that for what it's worth. It caused action. That's certainly what it appears to be. And so, this is a culmination of things over many, many years. And with the leadership we have in this country right now, under this president at this time, it makes it even worse. Because his whole existence in politics is entirely because of white grievance. Donald Trump could only become president after a black president. Because people seeing a black man rise to become president of this country made millions of white people think we're losing our country. They are even becoming presidents now. And so Trump identified that. And he's seasoned on this white grievance his entire existence, about building the wall to keep the brown people out, about banning Muslims, about deporting all, illegals, sending them all back, right? His whole existence is about making America, this making America great again. That's making America dominant white again, right? As if that has ever changed. But that's what it's all about. And so not only did he run on that platform, he has governed on that platform. And so with all this anger that has been, these brush fires of anger and, hatred and divisiveness all over the country, here comes this man into office. He's walking around with an open drum of gasoline just dropping and igniting and amplifying fires all over the country, right? So that's what you're seeing right now, and on the, when this first thing happened with George, with George Floyd, and I asked him about it, and he was there saying, it's a bad thing that happens, and we'll get to the bottom of it, and blah blah blah. You know, I looked and I said, you know what? Give him a couple hours. I watch him step all over that statement, and right on cue, within a couple hours, he was tweeting, these thugs. And if the left-wing mayor of Minnesota, everything has to be political for him. Doesn't take care of this, we're going to send in the military, and when the looting starts, the shooting starts, right? So you have that coming from the top of the government. What do you think the reaction is going to be amongst people who are already enraged? It made the shit 10 times worse. So the absolute worst time to have this man in office. And, I saw a tweet earlier on. I think it was from Dan Rather. And, so we've had multiple days of, city by city protests, riots, burning all across the nation. And Dan Rather, longtime newsman with CBS, said he cannot imagine another time in history where, with all this going on around the country, city by city, that the president of the United States at that time would not take that moment to have a national address from the Oval Office to try and calm things down, to at least speak to it, right? And also, he said he cannot think of another president in history where those words would be less welcome. Right? It's because, we know what we have. We know we have this just the most divisive person possible in that office. And it's a reality that we don't expect him to rise to the occasion ever. And we don't want to hear what he has to say, because he never rises to the occasion. He makes things worse. So actually his silence, tweeting and whatever, but nowadays I don't pay attention to a thing he says. So in spite of all that, his silence is actually appreciated. What will it take for things to calm down? Things are gradually going to calm down. Police have kind of, stepped up their efforts to stop these protests getting violent, and obviously police doing what they do. Not all of it has been by the book. We've seen that go out of hand many times during this, many incidents here to describe. But this is a rough time in this country's history, and it is a build-up. This is not all about one incident. It is a combination of many events just coming to a boiling point right now. Where do we go from here? I don't know where we go from here. What I would say is, we didn't get this way overnight. We're not going to solve it overnight. It's going to take probably generations to get this right. What we as Black people need to do, however, is strategically utilize our political power and our economic power. We have to put mayors and city council members and police chiefs and district attorneys across every city in the United States that hears our voice. And so that don't happen in one election. That happens in election after election over a long period of time. It takes economic power, because politics is money. Money is politics. So how we spend our money, where we spend our money, who we choose to spend it with, and building up our economic base to put some power and some financial muscle behind our voice. Those are the things that we need to do. So those are things within our control. So that's where we should place our focus, We're not burning and looting and all, not going to solve anything. But as Martin Luther King said, the riot is the voice of the unheard. I hope they heard us now. Now on to the next step. Let's do this. Let's organize, strategize, utilize our political, our economic power, take over these cities one by one, put people in offices that hear our voice, that represent our communities, and realize this is not going to get fixed overnight. So we're in it for the long haul. But we are powerful people. We've been through a hell of a lot, and we still stand. Battered and bruised, but we still stand. Bless up my people. One love.